Who are you, what's your role, and where do you work?
My name's Andrew Hillier. I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Densify.
What are 3 Kubernetes emerging tools that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I think we're keeping an eye on all things around vertical scaling, like in-place resizing is really much of interest to us. We're waiting for that to come out of alpha and beta to watch that. Multi-dimensional pod autoscaler is, of course, interesting. We are in the business of resource optimization, so anything that makes our lives better as far as downstream integrations are great. Anything with Prometheus or Hotel, of course, that's how we get our data to analyze. So these are all the things that we keep an eye on all the time because we want to leverage any advancements to make everything work better.
Our guest Alexandra wrote an article about over-provisioning. What strategies have you found effective in controlling over-provisioning in large Kubernetes clusters?
Well, we find over-provisioning is quite rampant, actually, and I think there's lots of reasons for it. I think as an app team, you might be disconnected from the infrastructure and not really understand that if you ask for 20 CPUs, it's actually going to cost something somewhere, and that will kind of manifest itself way down the line when somebody gets a bill for a giant scale group or a bunch of carpenter nodes. So we find it's kind of rampant, but at the same time, there's also some under-provisioning. We find memory tends to be both over and under. It's a bit of a mess, and so we try to surface that. A big strategy for us is to be very detailed and meticulous in our analytics, so we can say, you should be smaller, and here's exactly why. We've watched you for 95 days. Here's the busiest you ever got. Here's all the parameters, and this is a safe thing to do. So, the first step is always to gain that trust that somebody can be comfortable downsizing something that they're not using. And then the second step, of course, is to automate that to make sure that it happens automatically because they don't want to be bothered by this. The app teams don't want to be in the business of resource management. So once they trust it and you turn it on, then you just automate it and the problem goes away.
Our guest, John McBride, expressed that Kubernetes is a platform of the future for AI and ML, particularly for scaling GPU compute. Do you agree with this assessment? And what challenges do you see in running AI workloads on Kubernetes?
Yeah, we see AI being a big use case. We see more and more of it in our customers. We see a lot of inferencing happening on containers, some training as well. Again, there's a bit of a mix. We see customers using other services, kind of the more as a service offerings, but a lot of it's landing in Kubernetes. If cost is a problem in general in Kubernetes, which we see it is, once you throw GPUs into the mix, it becomes even more expensive, especially if they're not used. So we're doing a lot of work around that. We see it as a problem of yield. We want to make sure that you optimize the yield on the GPU. And that can mean different things depending on the workload type. So if you're doing training, maybe you want to max out at 100% all day long. For inference, maybe that's not a good idea. You want your response time to be better. So we're doing a lot of R&D in this area to understand the use case. Is it data prep? Is it inference? Is it training? And what the targets are and the policies are for making sure that we optimize the use of those resources by the containers. And there's various levers at your disposal, of course. GPUs have requests and limits, and the starting point is just to make sure those are correct so you're not straining a ton of capacity and wasting the money of these GPUs.
Our guest Alexandra expressed that having an automated mechanism is better than enforcing processes. What automation tools or approaches do you recommend for managing Kubernetes resources?
Well, and I think, again, a process, we find that is, in the cloud optimization, is very process-centric. So you open change management tickets and to do that stuff. And I think it's because of a little more of a high-touch angle on changing one of those resources. In containers, we see much less of that. I don't think everybody opens a change ticket to change a container. They really just want to automate it. And again, because it doesn't necessarily change the storage type or other configuration parameters of the workload, it's usually pretty safe just to change the resource settings. We have a number of mechanisms that we do that. We have a Terraform module. We have a really powerful API that gives back native JSON or TF-vars or whatever format. You can integrate that with OpenShift and things like that. And one of the latest ones we have, which we're showing here at the show, is our mutating emission controller. And we just made some major advancements to that. It's going out this week, actually. And that's one of the nicest ones we find because it gives you a centralized control point over the requests and limits. So rather than having to go way upstream to all the repos and kind of change all the numbers, you can just override them on the fly for the right workloads. If it's a dev workload or if you have permission to do this, you can fix it as it deploys. And so it's a really clean way to stop the over-provisioning by just kind of saying, we're just going to bring those numbers down automatically. You'll never know. You'll be running fine. We watch all the behavior, but it's a really clean way to stop from over-provisioning, which just basically causes a lot of infrastructure to run unutilized.
Kubernetes turned 10 years old last year. What should we expect in the next 10 years?
Well, I think it's interesting. I mean, who knows? It's where things are going. But I think the trend that I see is that, and it kind of reminds me, and I'll date myself a bit, of the early days of VMware, where in the early days, everybody had a VMware guru when they were deploying these things, and that somebody that really understood it. And then as it grew and became very ubiquitous, you couldn't rely on there being that kind of skill set everywhere. And I think as Kubernetes grows, it needs to be, the management ecosystem needs to come with it, just like it did in the, with the VMware environment, where there's a strong management platform with all the pieces being addressed. We do part of it, other vendors do part of it, and I think it all needs to be there so someone can say, okay, I can run these things without waking up all night and without having a PhD in Kubernetes. I just need to be able to run it reliably, learning from what everybody else has done and the mistakes that have been made. And so we try to do our part in that to make sure, there's resource problems now. Hopefully in a few years they're all solved because they're all being automated. And somebody moves on to the next problem. And I think that's where it's going to go, is kind of be much more mainstream and not require, again, everything to be a science project. You can just stamp out what works by knowing what's happened in the past.
What's next for you?
For us, well, the big thing we talked about is AI is a huge focus for us. So we're working on automation a lot right now. We have a number of big projects, in different areas of the roadmap, but AI is the big one. We're really focusing on that a lot because, again, we think it's going to become a major source of cost, a major performance concern. A lot of our customers are saying, that's their big frontier. They're running a lot. They're running it on-prem. They're running in the cloud. So a big push for us in the coming months is around AI and just optimizing both the cost and the risk of running these workloads.
How people get in touch with you? What's the best way to do so if people have questions?
Well, the best way, of course, to go to our website, densify.com. And in fact, there's a lot of stuff on there. You'll find my contact information on there. But there's also one of our newer things. We have a sandbox environment there. So if you want to see what our product does, you can request a trial if you want to do a trial, but you can also just click into the sandbox and click around and try it out. And so that's a good way to get to know what our product does. And of course, you can contact us and you can contact me. But I would say the starting point is densify.com, and from there you can find everything you need.